Hi. So my thing is which gender would be better at detecting the perceptual illusions. The goal of the research was to reveal if men or women have better perception. And the background, well, perceptual illusions, it's misperceived due to many factors. And the one I'm talking about right there, it's called it's based off of the Mueller-Lyer illusion, which is the optical illusion consisting of three stylized arrows. Daryl Pedersen and John Wheeler made this case study based off of that concept. It had 20 participants that 20 lived in a Hogan, which is a roundhouse, for 6 years of their life, and the other 10 lived in a rectangular house. And the results of that case study was that the context of the shaft tricked people's environment composed of angles. So going back to my study. So my research questions, it was, would everyone be able to focus on the whole picture, and which gender had better perception? The participants, there was 6 people. 3 of them were girls and 3 were boys. The age range was 20 to 60 years old. The way I got in contact with them was through Facebook because of COVID, and I wasn't trying to get sick because I have kids. And I sent them links to their Facebook Messenger. 2 of them, one was the PowerPoint with the 24 slides, and the other one was the answer sheet. On the slides, there was 12 that had shaft was shorter or longer than the standard baseline, and the other 12 had the baseline and comparison shaft with the context being the same. And it took them quite 3 days to give me back the answers, but when I got them back, and in the slideshow, the stimuli was the garden sprinkler with the grass around it, which is the thing on the picture on the poster board. And the results for that, I got that there was no significant differences in the men or the women. The mean range for the women was 97, and for the men was 95. The discussion, so the study for either gender, and when I was doing the procedure, the women and the men had different order of their slideshows. So for example, what began in the principle for the women, it was the ending for the men. And the discussion, so neither gender had better perception, they were both the same. And the problems I had was one of the participants, she didn't speak English, so it was a little bit harder for me to explain it to her. But at the end, we ended up getting it so she could understand it. And yeah, I think that's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
So you mentioned that the difference in terms of environment has an impact on how you perceive things. Why would you expect men versus women to be different in terms of how they perceive things?
Well, because women are more detailed when they do things, and men, they just go and do the task at hand.
Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to ask a question also, this is Dr. Bond. Do you think babies who are first born have different perceptual experiences which would make them better in terms of their sensation than if they have more perceptual experience versus kids who don't get those chances to, see different environments?
I would think so because babies would probably be more in tune to it than kids because kids would be focused on different things and a baby would be just focused on that one
So if you,
object.
yeah, so if you took a baby outside and put their little hand on a tree bark or something like that, they get some extra, I guess, experience with the world in terms of their ability to sense things. So would that play into anything in your study, in terms of their developmental experience?
Um, I yeah, I think I don't know. I'm really nervous. I didn't hear the question right.
Okay, well, let's go ahead. Anyone else have questions?
All right. If not, we will move on to the final one for this section. Thank you very much again for your
I think
presentation. Next, we will move on to perceptual illusions. Mary Seema.
How do I share the screen? Okay, how can I get my presentation on the screen? Okay, share screen. Okay. My camera is off. I've been trying to get it on and I struggled, so is it okay?
Yes, that's fine. If you had technical difficulties, that's all right.
Yeah, because I tried to get somebody to help me and they couldn't do it. Okay, my presentation is on perceptual illusion. And okay. So for introduction, in the world of cognitive psychology, there are three types of illusions which are different and significant in their own ways. So we have perceptual illusion, we have cognitive illusion, and we have psychological illusion. But I'll be focusing on perceptual illusions. What is perceptual illusion? So I did a PowerPoint presentation for this. Okay. The perception of something objectively existing in such a way as to cause misinterpretation from its actual nature. In simple terms, it convinces us that the real life version is untrue or false. Okay. How does an illusion happen? So our brains have receptors which detect sound, light, and temperature. So most of these receptors are on the surface of our bodies. When our brain receives these messages or these signals from the receptors, it interprets it correctly. But the illusions or the sensory illusion is when the brain interprets the signal from the receptors incorrectly. Okay. So I use the Miller layer illusion. So the illusion can be easily demonstrated by looking at three horizontal lines, as you can see there. There's one with outward wings, there's one with inward wings, and there's a straight line with no wings. So the illusion is the line with the outward wings looks longer than the lines with the inward wings, while the line with no wings looks even smaller than that. But in reality, they all have the same exact length. Okay. So how this illusion work is, I'm going to explain it in two ways. The first is the misapplied size constancy scaling by Richard Gregory, and the second one is the conflicting cues by R.H. Day. So the misapplied size constancy scaling and the conflicting cues is, this explains that the arrowheads on the line, they engage with the part of the visual system that deals with the depth cues and the retinal images. And so this leads to the line with the outward wings to be perceived as longer because it's being processed as being further away. So the wings are perceived as being part of the overall size and shape of the line, which is why the line with the outward wings looks longer. So the relevance of the Muller-Lea illusion is that it explains the fact that perception is not perfect and that even knowing about an illusion doesn't change our perception. So while I was conducting my experiment, so for my experiment to work, I used two tables and I created an illusion with them. When two tables are put in different positions, one in the vertical positions and then the other one was in the horizontal position, the illusion has to do with the perspective. So here's the table. So here are the two tables. So I did this experiment at home with my roommates and some of my future teammates. So for example, I have here the table example, and I also have the train track, since we have a train track here in Portales, close to the track stadium down there. So the results were, when you place those two in different positions, people who view them will see them different as to the view. So I was referring to the Muller-Lea illusion, the arrows example, and the example of the table and the train rack. So here, for the table one, after I put those two tables in the vertical and horizontal position, my teammates and the people and my roommates, they saw that the table, when you look at in a vertical way, it looked longer and more slender, and while the other one will look shorter and squatter. And then with the train rack, the train tracks looks like vertical lines, but your brain knows it's like that because they are getting further away from you as you like move further from it. And then that's my reference. Thank you. Any questions? I was so nervous. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions?
Any questions? How do I get
You're late.
Welcome. Do you have any questions? Not at this time. Anyone else? All right, so we will call it there for that 3 o'clock session. What do you think, Dr. Bond? Are we moving forward?
I think we should push forward.
All right.
Is everyone ready? Okay, so we're with Alana, and she has sent me her video. And let me just pull that up real quickly and share it with you. Okay. All right, screen sharing. Screen sharing where? Oh, here. All right, here we go. Well, I've got it on my screen, but I need to figure out how to share it. Let's see.
Dr. Bond, we can't see the actual video or hear it.
Okay.
We see your browser here.
All right. And that's all, huh? Let me, pull that down. I'm sorry. Okay, it looks like she's here. All right, let me try this. Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Good. All right, I'm going to play it.
Can't hear her. Do you see an option for more and share audio or something like that? Christopher was telling us about that earlier.
All right, that's about as much output as I can get. Let's see. All right, Dr. Spiller, let's see, when you said something about audio, what are you doing?
Yeah, Christopher Gomez earlier said something about after sharing his screen, he saw an option for more, and then it said something about sharing audio.
Okay.
In the bottom left, like when you pick the screen or you pick the particular program you want to share, there's a little box that says share sound. Maybe that's what he was referring.
The bottom left.
Yeah, right after you select share screen and it pops up with all the different windows you can share.
Okay.
In the bottom left corner of that window, there's an option for share sound.
I see share screen. Oh, I see share sound. I get it. Okay.
So maybe that's what he was talking about.
Very good. All right, let me try it again.
Hello, my name is
There we go.
Rose, and this is my presentation over the Muller-Lyer illusion and perceptual illusions. The Muller-Lyer illusion is an illusion of two straight lines that are the same length but have arrowheads at the end of each line, which gives the illusion that they are different in size. It makes it seem like one is shorter or longer than the other. Most people, when asked how different the lines are, say that one is smaller or one is longer, when in reality they are actually the same exact size. Researchers believe that this is because people live in carpentered areas or homes, so they are more vulnerable to this illusion. It has been found that certain groups of people who live in non-carpentered areas are less vulnerable to this illusion, such as Navajos who grew up in traditional round homes, also known as a hogan. A study done by Peterson and Wheeler found that Navajos that grew up in a traditional round home were much less vulnerable to another group of Navajos who did not grow up in a traditional round home and grew up in a carpentered area or home. In my experiment, I will be asking 2 different groups of 12 how much different in size they think the lines shown to them are. One group will be shown 2 lines of the same size, and the other will be shown an image of 2 lines that are actually different in size. And each group is mixed with people who spend majority of time outside and majority of time inside. That way it is not biased. And my hypothesis is that both groups will assume the lines are different sizes regardless of what image they are shown. The study analyzes the moral liar illusion and how much it affects those who spend more time inside and more time outside. And as predicted in my hypothesis, it wasn't even response to the images shown. Majority of the participants in the groups said the lines were different in sizes, even though one group was shown an image of lines that were the exact same size. So the moral liar illusion does affect people evenly unless they do grow up in non-carpentered areas. Thank you.
All right, that's or I'm sorry, Alana's, right? Okay, next on the agenda is Louisa. Are you here, Louisa?
Doesn't look like she is. She mentioned having to go do her COVID shot or
Oh,
something like that.
okay.
So I put her,
The video.
might not be back yet. Yep.
All
Unless
right.
she's waiting to get in.
Yeah, I don't see her there.
Okay.
Play her video here. Um, she's on YouTube, so let me just save this link. And okay, and I'll share the screen.
Hello everyone, my name is Luisa Marroquin and I'm a junior in college. I'm majoring in criminal justice and minoring in psychology. The topic I chose for this conference is eyewitness identification accuracy. The accuracy of eyewitness identification can be such an interesting topic to talk about. This is because many people have been sentenced to death penalty for wrongfully eyewitness identifications. I've seen many cases where people go and they witness, they give their testimony for a crime that has happened, or they have been in the crime or at the time when it happened, and they wrongfully accused a person just because they look similar to whoever they actually saw doing the crime. For example, this is an example. Let's say I was in the middle of a shooting, and the car who passed by shooting a neighborhood, and let's say the guy, he was wearing a red hat and he had blue eyes, everything covered, but I could only see his eyes. And then I see a random guy in the store wearing the red hat with blue eyes, and then maybe I can think, oh, that's the guy. So whenever they call me to give my testimony, I can be like, hey, I saw this and this, and it looks just like him. And that guy that I saw at the store might be completely innocent. He might not be the guy we're looking for. So this is pretty common for many cases. So people get convicted wrongfully for wrongfully eyewitness identifications. Something that I wrote down was that we can see in many cases the jury trial believes an eyewitness just for giving their testimony or what they saw. But for this, we need more evidence and not only words that a person saw. We need more accurate proof. Is eyewitness identification always accurate? In most cases, it is. But what about those times when, it is not, right? A person is wrongfully convicted, and what do we do now? Do we just close the case, or do we maybe later on we find out that that person was innocent? Now we have to look for the person who actually committed the crime. So I believe that in future testimonies, the eyewitness should be passed through a test where he or she must memorize some things and aspects of a person, and at the end, he or she must describe what a researcher asked to answer. For example, for this hypothesis that I have is, let's say if a researcher wants to study this accuracy, eyewitness identification accuracy, I don't know, give a certain group of people a video of I don't know, people walking in the mall, just a random video of an everyday type of thing, and that person has to at the end of the video, that group of people have to identify what a certain person looked like. For example, let's say we were looking here in Roswell. I live in Roswell, so we have a pretty small mall. So we have a couple of stores, that's it. For example, I'm going to be one of the people, one of the persons being studied. So I can, at the end of the test, they can ask me, do you remember what shirt the guy wearing a red hat was wearing? And if I can just give guess, but red, maybe if it was yellow, that's what we need more people to actually get studied before they actually go and give their testimony. In my opinion, that would be a good hypothesis, a good research, to study their memory first before they give their official testimony. And then I think that this can give us a level of accuracy of that person's eyewitness identification. So I predict that this will lower the wrongfully convictions of people who are sentenced depending on the people's eyewitness identifications. So there are many cognitive psychologists that other than doing experiments, they can also testify about expert witnesses at trials. Based on the factors on how crime was committed, they can verify how an eyewitness identification testimony is accurate or not. We tend to trust our own experience and our own perceptions, right? Sometimes we always think we're always right, but that might not always be the case. We're humans. We might not always be right. So it is important to make sure that the person who's pointing out the person that committed the crime is given the right testimony, because if it's an innocent person, why would that innocent person would be convicted? I would hate if one of my family members or friends or anyone that I know would get convicted or wrongfully convicted. It's not fair for them to pay for a crime they didn't commit. But how do we really know how it's gonna work? So researchers are still studying the accuracy of being able to remember a face we just saw less than a couple of seconds. It can be less than a second. And what aspects do we tend to remember the most about that person? So sometimes I find it crazy how sometimes the jury trial or the jury can find a person guilty of if another person just testifies and says, hey, I saw this person less than a second, but I know it was that person. I know it was that person with no other evidence, So, there's always more evidence in cases. Of course, there's more evidence. They look more into it, maybe cameras. But as long as they have someone who can testify, they tend to take the word more than other any type of evidence, you know? So this has been my topic. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching my video. It's kind of like my first time recording a video, so my bad if I look kind of nervous, but I'm always trying my best. So if you guys have any questions, I'm ready for them, okay? Well, I hope you guys stay safe.
All right, very interesting. All right, we have Samuel, and you're next. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. Would you mind if I screen share to
Yeah,
move
go
my
ahead.
presentation along? Because mine will be a live presentation. Sorry, it's asking me about my setting preferences. Give me one moment. Excuse me. Do you guys have a link of my presentation?
No.
Okay.
Let's see, did you click share screen at the bottom?
I did. It opened up my security preferences, so I'm kind of working with this. I don't want to hold anyone up.
Okay.
Okay. We're on to something. Okay. Are we good now?
Good.
You can see that?
Yes.
Awesome. Excuse me. Is this in the way? Okay. How does that look? Can everyone see that? We good?
It's loading here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lassiter, Dr. Lassiter.
No
Okay,
problem.
so I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Samuel Sebastian. I currently employed at La Casa Family Health Center as a receptionist for them. I also am a full-time student, and I have a dog that I love dutifully. But here's a cat, just to show you that I have perspective. We're going to be discussing humor today, and I just think this is an important topic to myself because I believe people are important. But I also think that there's something valuable that people can take away from this presentation as well. And I hope that that's what you're able to do today, to find some nugget to take you to another place and to think about thoughts. But I'd like also, if I could get some feedback to see what direction I need to take this experiment in. I just want to say that most of this information was gotten at the beginning of the COVID period, around April May was when I was finalizing this information. So I have taken into account new information, but I didn't want to put it into this one because I want more time to assess that information. So let's get right into it. Here are a couple of my resources. So I wanted to show you guys that the European Journal is where I mainly used, which was kind of convenient for me because Americans had articles, but it wasn't exactly in terms of sociability. And so I was looking specifically for things that could explain, like right here, this first one is the conceptualization, measurement, and role of humor. So this role of humor as a character strength and positive psychology is something that I thought was important. So this is my main one. That's super vital to me. But then down here, we also have something that was taken from a Twitter analyzation to show you that the internet kind of plays a factor into this humor aspect. And so right off the bat, the technological aspect of humor isn't going to be really spoken about. We'll go over it briefly. And then just here you can see we also spoke. I didn't speak to these people, but I went into their resources. So here is just a bit about why I wanted to do this. And how. So I went to this research conference. One of my jobs for Eastern is an ASAB retention coordinator. And so we go and we get people to come to the university. And so tonight, actually, we have a comedian coming from Wild and Out at 7 tonight. At this conference, we met a bunch of different comedians. And this one particular having tonight was one of the guys we got. So when you're looking for someone to bring to your university, you have to take into account the bias that your group may have. You don't want to bring somebody who's just going to offend everyone with their humor, because that doesn't do well. So what we were looking for was people who had a diverse range of humor. So I had to ask myself, well, what does that mean? So during that discussion, we realized that there is a line where jokes become too far and can be offensive. And so we'll discuss that counterpart of how I divided that up as well. But these are some of the questions that guided me through it. Why is humor oppressive? Can it be oppressive? What's its capacity? And why do people enjoy laughing? What about humor is so, it's not tangible for us, but we know it. We know it well, and somebody can effectively show us humor. We know what laughter is. And so these phenomenons are pretty well versed, they're pretty well known. People know them. But I wanted to do more about it because this is just an intriguing topic. If everyone has the ability to be humorous, so there's got to be something there. So let's just humor, just to define it, is a device used to channel effective rhetoric in order to cultivate the relationships or partnerships and build credibility in one's community. So this is my definition of humor. So humor can be looked at in many different ways, but to channel effective rhetoric is its main premise. To effectively do so in a positive way or in a negative way. There's a disclaimer. So ethically, things can be very diverse from where you are located. So if you're in a different country, they may see American humor as something that they don't understand. Or if you're in Europe, you can see some joke and there could be a clown and he could be really funny. But to the American perspective, it seems kind of lackluster, something's missing. So what might be ethically concerning in the memes below? Just to talk about the technological aspect. What's below are memes, and a meme basically is like it's a funny, humorous post on social media that's used to channel effective rhetoric. And so in this first example on the left, starting from left to right, we have this man on a cell phone. And so oftentimes this one is used in reference to call your mom when you're uncomfortable in the situation, which can be taken as very serious. Uncomfortability is not something to joke about. But in this case, in this meme, it was taken in this way. And so this could be ethically concerning, because if a parent's to see this and they're jokingly making fun of calling your mom, you could see that as something that, why would they say that, from this perspective? But as a child, you're saying, oh yeah, it is funny to call your mom when you're uncomfortable. So you have this duality of humor that I believe is important in understanding perception. So the aspects of humor, I think why it's so brilliant is because it really can open some doors for you. If you're able to contribute to personal relationships with humor, do it effectively, do it maybe with pizzazz or whatever it be, spontaneity, finesse, and to do it well, somebody will remember you. And I think that's important when becoming a social individual, but also in academics, because being linguistically inclined helps you produce humor. And if you can do that, then there's other things that you can do, because you can probably write well, you can probably do other things. So I believe that the mind can focus linguistically more when you are capable of being good at humor. And so right here, this mid-orange is primarily seeking to identify the aspects of humor that can aid in social skills, such as confidence, psychological well-being, and gratitude, to strengthen the connections made with others by understanding the mechanisms of these traits. So why I hold this so dear to me is this orange one here. It was important for me to understand why I could feel grateful and why positive humor was more effective than negative. And then again, we have this resource this is the main resource that I was using because it did such a good job of being able to distinguish what was positive and what was negative about humor. And so they went on to say here, this is really just a shorthand that I thought was important. Humor and associations with happiness, roots to happiness, resilience, and morality. So we have a few phenomena there that are, you can look at these concepts and say that they are positive, but resilience likewise has this duality of, you can see the perspective of a person who's resilient and think, wow, so stoic, so brave. But what you don't see is the moments where that person is weak, that person is tearful, that person is mourning, So if you're able to effectively show society with your sociability that it could lead to professional happiness or a professional pursuit of some sort of joy, and then you have morality as well. So morality, this is where that duality of humor comes into play. You can have a really good joke, but just placed in a bad time. You could have a really bad joke placed in an environment with bad people, and it does well. So there's multiple aspects, and I think that a Punnett square would do best to kind of explain that exchange. Humor is often used, maybe subtly, or maybe it's an emphasis. A lot of people's main personality trait could be humor. They say, oh, well, what's something that you can tell us about yourself? Well, I'm funny. Well, how can one distinguish for that? Well, you yourself can distinguish that by making a pros and cons chart. It could be longer than you want to admit. Why are you funny? Why are you not funny? But you can also do so technologically, because if you can effectively communicate on social media, that's great. But in person, if you're lackluster, lackadaisical, and you're missing that, well, then that person might have a different perspective of you afterward. And the goal with this presentation is to enhance the positive aspects in order to produce a higher effective and more contributional sociability. So here at Twitter sometimes is taken out of context. It's misinterpreted. Sometimes it is exactly what that person thought, just the wrong environment. See, the internet isn't exactly the best place to tell everyone your dearest thoughts, but people still do it. Trust me, people still do it, and it doesn't always get positive feedback, which is an aspect of that I would like to just, again, the technological aspect of it is different. I want to talk about in-person sociability. So here's our 4 distinct categories for how I and this resource was able to help me contribute to this, and how did we define humor. So the first one is, there's 4. The first one is affiliative humor. The second is self-enhancing. The third is self-defeating, and the fourth is aggressive. So I'll explain these very briefly. The first one is affiliative. So this is humor used to connect. This is humor used in public speaking. This is humor used in group activities, stuff like that. Perhaps it could be situational and momentary moments where something is funny, but if you wait too long, it no longer will be. That's what that category can be as. Self-enhancing humor is often a coping method, but it's how you generally speak to yourself in a humorous way. An example of this is, I just stubbed my toe. I may say, oh, I hate my life. Now, presently in that moment, I may feel that I do hate my life, but that doesn't mean that my entire life is in shambles. And so this is important for self-enhancing humor because the aspects of it have that duality of positive and negative as well. If you speak negatively yourself and you're constantly speaking these bad words into your humor, well, your humor is going to be noted and it's going to be a little darker. The next one is self-defeating humor. So this is humor that's also used for the self. So this is also self-talk, and it's when it's negative. So you're constantly using that negativity as a crutch. And again, this is often the one that is a coping method. You kind of get stuck in this one. The routine gets kind of stuck. Everything is jammed up when your self-talk becomes negative. The fourth one is aggressive humor. And what I really saw this one as the article breaks down is bullying. It's a huge thing when you're incapable or incapable of being social in high school. So aggressive humor is kind of the easiest format to portray for insecurity. So it's kind of like when you're backed up into a corner and somebody's approaching you, well, what do? If I'm mean to this person, they'll leave me alone. Let me say a really mean joke. And so that's kind of how that was broken down for myself to share with you. So to conclude with my research, each reference had its own goal. my goal itself was to show the internal and external capacity of positive humor and how one can take away little pieces of information from this presentation to use beneficially and to possibly increase your positive value. Or if this is a goal of yours to go the other direction, that's your intention. So this is your takeaway, and I'll conclude with this. What tip for you would be to learn what makes you laugh in private so that you may produce the same level of contentment around others. When being sociable, it's kind of difficult to portray things that aren't you, themes, concepts that you don't resonate with, you don't feel, you're not passionate about. Learn what makes you laugh in private so that you can go into these social fields and you can know what's funny. You can share that with people, and then you can possibly connect more effectively because you have a solid ground that you can go and reach out and possibly pull them into. Another is understand that you're living, you're alive. That's a form of expression, and I encourage you to continue to live and not to only exist, especially during these times. It can be a little difficult, but thank you for hearing me and thank you for listening to my presentation today.
Thank you, Samuel. Any questions for him? It seems like the aggressive humor in your talk is psychologically interesting. It seems like lots of people on social media use aggressive humor to denigrate others, right?
Yes.
Ted Cruz, right, is a recent meme, right? He's either down by the border in the bushes, or he was taking that trip to Mexico, right? And, to some people, I guess that's funny. To me it was. But to other people, it may be insulting, right? So, I think psychologically, what makes people either laugh at that or be insulted? I think that would be a good psychological question to ask, right?
Another thing that I was curious about was when this phenomenon of someone tripping in public happens.
Mm-hmm.
People get concerned, but normally your first instinct is to laugh. And I saw this trend in college, and people who were from out of state, from out of country, I met a lot of international students at Eastern. They all took it the same way. The first intention was humor. And so I that's really what, and then also the YouTuber stars, the memes, they take content and they make it. But if you decide to sit and really watch it, you can get offended if you watch it too many times. You'll find something to argue about. But yeah, that's a crazy phenomenon that we can do that and we can think about that. It's just weird to me. We have capacity for it.
Interesting. Any other questions?
I wonder if you are aware of the term called Schadenfreude.
No, ma'am. Could you explain?
It's a German kind of psychology. Term that you laugh at others' misfortune. Yeah. So what you're studying seems to be related with sarcasm. So perhaps if you'd like to, you can look into it. I believe that study has been done. I'm not sure if it's continuing to this day, but that continued for a while. So if you'd like to, you could look it up and then perhaps reference it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar with the language or humor, to be honest. Are you in any way influenced by European psychology? Are you in Europe now, or that?
No. I'm here in Portales, but I definitely think that the
German psychologists doing that study, and then it was carried out in the US too. So you could look into that. Let me spell it.
Please, can you drop it in the group chat? I'll copy and paste it to my notes.
It's yeah, okay, I could. Let me see. There's actually an article about that a couple of years ago from Psychology Today. So let me see. I'm not super familiar with this, but okay.
I've heard the term before as well. I know what you're referencing.
From
Schadenfreude, something like that.
Yeah, he
Schadenfreude.
yeah, Schadenfreude. Yeah, they did study on this. So I think he might have published a paper 1 or 2, but Brian, I forgot his last name, but maybe Gary, Dr. Bones remembers him, but as well. But yeah, that's that. You can look it up if you would like to.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think that means I have to hit my textbooks a little harder since I'm not thinking about this phenomenon that I didn't speak about too hard on. But I also wanted to know if you guys had input for research methods, like for surveys. So my surveys, if there's anything that I should stay away from, or if there's easier ways to do things when taking them.
Perhaps we need to look at your survey more closely instead of just presentation. Then we could give you more detailed advice or comments. Perhaps not, not that it's not good enough, but if you'd like us to look at it, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for letting me present.
Thank you.
All right, Jillian, are you ready? You're next.
I am ready. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I did a recording on PowerPoint, but I need to see if it's gonna work.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Just let me know if you can hear the audio. So looking into the method and participants of this study, there were 5 participants.
Yes, ma'am.
3 were female, 2 were male. They ranged 15 to 48 years of age. Each individual is asked to submit a consent form prior to participating, and then a date was set to meet with them through Zoom. So the actual study consisted of 3 slides, each of which had a list of 15 words. The first slide had a list of non-emotional black and white words, and then the second slide would have the same 15 words, they would be colored. So similar to the original Stroop effects study, the individuals were asked in the second slide to, instead of reading the actual words as in the first slide, they would read the color of the word in the second slide. So the third slide was different from the first and second because it contained a list of 15 anxiety-inducing words according to the ANU database. These words were all a different color, like the second slide of the study. They were asked just to read the color of these words. So in the third slide, the prediction was that the individuals would read the word behind the color and they would be thrown off a little bit. Their time to process just the color would be lengthened according to, the anxiety that the word induced. So that times were averaged for the first and second slide and entered to the first column of the SPSS, and then the times for the third slide were entered into the second column of SPSS, and then a paired sample t-test was performed to test the difference of means between the times of the slides in order to see if there was a difference in the times that was significant. After the individuals participated in this, they were asked to complete the GAD-7, which would just give a general level of the anxiety for all of the individuals, and this was averaged together. In the figure below the method and participation section, that's just an image of the third slide, so it has all of the anxiety-inducing words, toxic, lonely, panic, trouble, danger, words like that. And they were colored, and again, the individuals would have to read just the color. So looking into the results section, there was a significant difference between the means. The significance level in the t-test showed 0.024, which is less than the 0.05. the individuals generally showed slightly delayed responses to the anxiety words. This was predicted. It was assumed that the individuals would see the anxiety words and then have a lengthened time. As a result, the average, looking into the results from the GAD-7 where we tested the individuals' level of anxiety, the individuals could have had a total of 21, you could call them points, out of the 0 to 3 scale of the anxiety level questions. The total for all of the individuals could have been 21 points. So each individual averaged about 16 out of the 21 points. So the anxiety was significantly higher for these individuals, which could play into the lengthened time that it took for these individuals to read or to see just the color rather than the word, as they seem to be more anxious than what might be normal.
Okay, let me move this.
So the delay of the individual's time of relaying the information was observed when they were presented with the third slide that had the anxiety words present. The individuals were more prone to delay the time that it takes to relay the information that was asked of them. This was expected as a product of this group effect. So it was predicted that the individuals would have just taken that a little bit more time to process just the color of the words rather than focusing on the anxiety word alone. I think that this experiment could be improved when you look into the participation or the participant section of the study. I think that it could be much more diverse. I think that instead of having around 5 individuals, we could have 12 to 15 or maybe more, just to get more accurate data from these individuals. I also think that the demographic of individuals that participated was not nearly wide enough. They were all fairly similar in where they grew up, who they are, what they do. They were all very similar in that aspect. So I think if there was a wider demographic of individuals that were participating, it might be more helpful to make it more applicable to real life situations. This information is useful to people in the real world situations. When you look into things like how an individual might react to the changing stimulus, particularly to the anxiety-inducing words. For example, in a learning environment, educators might want to refrain from using the high level of anxiety-inducing words that can be retrieved from the ANU database when teaching, in order to make it easier for individuals to be able to process the presented information. As we observed, the individuals who saw the anxiety words had just a slightly delayed reaction time to what the color was. So the individuals who might be presented with these words when they're trying to learn might have just a little bit of a harder time processing and retaining information as a result of seeing the words.
Okay, that about does it for my presentation.
All right, questions? I thought it was interesting that with just 5 people, you got a significant difference between the baseline and the interference condition. And that most of the people were high on anxiety. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I used a few of my friends, and then I used some other college students and one of my mom's friends. So I imagine that they were all, college students tend to be more anxious. So I imagine that that probably had a big factor in it. But I do know that that sample was a really small group of people. So if I did more with this, I would really hope to get a larger sample.
Yeah, but you know, even with a small sample, that's really interesting that you would get a significant difference. Your stimuli, you took those from the new database, right? The, what is that called? The effective norms for words database, is that right? How did you choose the anxiety words?
They have levels. I think it was 0 to 7. And for the non-stimulating words, I used 0 to 3. And then for the more stimulating words, I tried to stay around 5 to 7. So that's how I picked for the more anxiety-inducing words. I did the 5 to 7.
Okay, other questions, comments? That's our last presentation of the afternoon. You should have like 1 million questions for Jill, right? Would you like 1 million questions, Jill?
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, you know, let's grill her really good. This is the end of the conference anyway. Any other questions? All right. I guess you get off the hook then, Jillian. Thank you very much. You guys all did well in this last segment, and all through the afternoon, I was really impressed with everyone's presentations. And you should congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back, and you know, be proud of yourself. All right, we're going to finish up with Dr. Gill giving us some words here at the end of this symposium.
Yeah, I just want to first reiterate what Dr. Bond just said about thanking everyone for participating and all the effort you put into it. And it's clear that you all took it seriously and were really trying to learn and get something valuable out of the experience. And so I hope you did. And, you know, we kind of started out talking about the psychological aspects of major events that have happened. And so started out thinking about how, you know, things outside us, things beyond our control, have an impact on us. And it's interesting to me that most of the studies you can relate to how we take in information in some way, and that you all found something that was relevant to you, that applied to your life, to see how basic research can be applied in real life, even to big issues like how we're psychologically impacted by things like pandemic and Black Lives Matter and so on. And for me, one of the takeaways is how we say things is very important. It influences how we think about ourselves and how we think about things outside of ourselves. Related to that is context matters. Context makes all the difference. We saw that with humor in particular, but we also see it with the Mueller-Lyer perceptual illusions, and that affects how we respond to things like the pandemic and so on. So just kind of some food for thought. I'm not going to make you answer to prolong this, but some food for thought is, how do you feel studying basic questions like this in psychology? Most psychology students go into major in psychology not to do research, although some do, certainly, but even those that do, you know, basic research isn't really, you know, super whoopee bells and whistles, you know, major kinds of things necessarily. So, but it does kind of change how you think about what psychology is and how it applies to your life. So kind of the food for thought question is, how has this experience of doing this kind of research and going through this research conference process changed how you see psychology and how it applies to your life, and the value of studying psychology scientifically. And yeah, so that's where I'll leave it. I had a couple other thoughts, but I think that's a good place to kind of stop. I will say we are going to, there has been judging that has gone on throughout this, and we will be tallying the results, and as soon as possible, we will send out a broadcast email to all psychology majors so you know who the winners are, and we have prizes and recognition plaques and things to send out, and something for everyone who participated. So we'll be sending out those things as soon as we can. So anyway, it was really a lot of fun for me, and I hope you all enjoyed it too. And those of you that are going to be here next year, we look forward to seeing you again next year.
All right. Thanks very much to everyone. You guys have a great day and eat something. Take care of yourselves. Okay. See you later.
And talk a little bit after Tuesday.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, Melanie.
Bye. Have a good one.
Hey, see you in the class.
Oh, so Doc, to answer your question about the working memory thing, previous versions of the task showed that there wasn't a relationship between the instructions and the remainder of it.
All right.
Forgot to say that for benefit of the students, but it just reminded me. But
yeah,
I didn't want to interrupt the wonderful benediction we had here from Dr. Gill.
When you're talking, you miss stuff. That's good.
Rating? I think some people didn't fill in. Like, so I was supposed to do rate first and third session. Dr. Gill, no, not Leslie. So I'm sorry. I was keep calling her Dr. Leslie. I'm like, no, Gill. I mean, Leslie was supposed to do. She covered for Gary, so she did 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions rating, right? And Gary, did you do first one, the first session rating? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Lester, you are supposed to do second, right?
The instructions I heard were we were rating when we weren't.
When we weren't. So third and fourth, you're doing it, right?
So I did it 3 times because we had 4 sessions and I only did it 1 time.
No,
and I only hosted 1 time.
You're supposed to do twice.
What? I can't hear you. Sorry.
You're supposed to do twice. Third and fourth, you're supposed to.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood the directions. I thought what I heard was if you were rating when you weren't hosting.
Yeah, but you are hosting only for second one, so you're supposed to do third and fourth. I did twice, and you are supposed to do twice. And
I rated for every session that I wasn't hosting. So first, second, and fourth.
Okay, it's okay, I guess. What do you guys think? It's okay to rate. We have extra rating. Good for you. Okay, I mean that's actually better, I think. Okay, good. You didn't miss anything. So
I did first. What did I do? Yeah, first, third, and fourth.
Okay, I did twice. I thought we were gonna have 2 judges. actually for each, but it's okay. I think if you guys, if you have 3 judges, it's better, you know?
Yeah, I think so. That's why it made sense. So I didn't think to question it or ask any questions. So, okay. Well, apologies if I messed that up, but
Honestly, I downloaded it. It's kind of weird. So let me clean it up and then share with you guys, hopefully by tomorrow.
oh
okay?
wait, yeah, I don't have the last one. I didn't hit submit yet.
Okay, good. That's
Should I?
Yeah,
I-
you should, yeah.
I did mine on
Okay.
paper, so I haven't entered any of mine.
Why? Because I checked, it was some missing points. Okay, so I'm like,
Yeah.
is that Google is weird or something? So you can enter on the Google form I send out, so it automatically calculates.
Yes.
It's still
Yeah.
kind of weird because I saw some like it's supposed to be averaging it, but it wasn't averaging it. So I'm like, what's going on? But I'm gonna clean up the data. Once you type them, can you let me know so I can check the data?
Yeah,
You,
I'll do it right now. As soon as we get off.
you did it on
Um,
Google form, right, Gary?
Yeah, I'll go home and do it right after I eat because
Oh, you didn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, no, okay, that's why you and I, that's and I did.
yeah.
That's why I was like, this is.
Do you know what? This was really, it was a good day, I think, for the students, and we were able to get some conversation in with them, and I think it was good for them. So
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
quality varied a lot, but at least we were able to see what they. It was good.
Yeah, it was. But one thing was that they all called the study perception illusion. I'm like, but that's not about that. It's the one of technique you're using. So I wish they were more specific about their topics. With signal detection, they all called it signal detection. I thought that they were studying signal detection theory itself.
Right.
It's not about that. They are using technique or methods of that. So I'm like, but it was much it was good.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're getting there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because
It's a start.
you guys told me like, oh, it's a reason school. They just wanna have experience, but then I don't know. To be honest with you, I think they actually did a decent job. What do you think, Chris? I mean, I'm not making this up because it's my school.
Yeah.
I honestly thought it was not bad. What do you think?
So too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it kind of lines up with what happens in the research methods class that I'm finding.
Yeah. It's kind of
Oh,
And actually, like right before I got in at the 3:00 hour to do my session, I was on the phone with a student because they were not understanding that this week's assignment is combine the summaries that you've done with your critical theory paper to make your introduction section.
oh
But
wow.
apparently the class is emailing each other and they're confusing each other. And I'm like, just email me. Like what's going on? So yeah, so there's some communication deals which then lead to misunderstanding. So, but the stuff that they end up turning in, this is it's not bad, like you said. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Like the student who turned in just a video of her talking, there was miscommunication there because she was like last minute. She's like, "Oh, I didn't know I needed to do this," and I was like, "I've been waiting for your email." But
And most of
yeah, it was pretty good.
polite. Yeah. I mean, very, very polite.
And for it to be all remote, where you're not working with them, you don't see them regularly to be like, "Hey, do you have that thing?" I think it went well.
There are exceptions.
One thing I will say though, I think if we do this virtually again in the future, it might be good to. It was too last minute, and it might even be a price hike for Zoom. But their webinar version looks like it has features that make it easier
I see.
to share stuff on there.
And it
But,
might be better to use Teams in that case.
Yeah.
That's true. But all in all, I think it went well.
Yeah.
Kudos to you guys.
Well, thanks for doing all this. Good work. All right. See ya.
All right, I'm gonna go lay down. This COVID vaccine is
I
still kicking me in the face.
Like,
Is that the second one lasted?
Yeah, I was out yesterday. Man, today I'm at like 76% and waning. But yeah, I could sit up, so I was like, I'm gonna be here. So
Did you take a like ibuprofen or something?
yeah, I took Tylenol.
Good.
I didn't take any today. I think I'm gonna get some.
You should take it though.
Yeah, I think I'll do that now.
I want to show it to you.
Oh,
See you later.
all right. See.
This one supposed to work best according to here.
Oh, acetaminophen.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
is down.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Doctors told me when I was getting shot. So this is if I feel a little bit nauseous, I was told to take this one.
Yeah.
The next morning, I woke up with a pain and I'm like, oh my god, this. But then here's the thing: there's a COVID variation coming from Europe now. So
I know.
I'm
I don't
not.
want to hear.
I was looking forward to face-to-face class.
Hopefully, it doesn't cross the sea. See how well that worked out.
Already, but
Yeah. All right. See you guys.
yeah. Okay. Have a nice day, guys. Thanks a lot. It was so good.
Yep.